Welcome to another episode of Out on a Limb podcast with your hosts, yours truly, Dr. Allison Brown, Will Brown, and Ms. Samantha Kaufmann, coming to us from Hilton Head area, Buford.
Bluffton.
I always forget Bluffton and Buford. I don't know why I'm confused between the two B's.
Don't get it confused with, I guess, North Carolina, Buford, or
oh, please don't. That's Beaufort.
Beaufort,
right? So that's a big difference.
Spelled the same, but said differently.
So today we have a little topic called Ascension. It's huge. We don't know where we're going to go with it, but there's a lot to talk about, and it's going to be really fun. So let's dive in, shall we?
Sure.
Who wants to start?
I'll listen.
What do you know about Ascension?
Like we're all going to point fingers. Who wants to? That's such a, like you said, it's such a big one. So, everything that I've been channeling lately, it's everything seems to go back to people need to heal. They need to go through this healing process to reclaim those, you could say, shadow parts of themselves, those wounded parts, whatever it is, but it's so important to heal and incorporate all of that. And that's been their message. Okay. So then the next thing, people are like, well, why do we need to do that? And so then they open it up broader, and these guides begin to explain that, we're leveling up in our consciousness. And, so we are going through this process, not just us, Earth, every molecule, every particle of energy, everything is leveling up into this new, think of it, here we're in this 3D reality. We understand the concept of what our experience is, and we're shifting into what they describe as the fourth, fifth dimension. Some are already there. Some are, wavering between the two. But in that, we're going from head space into heart space, right? We're going from thinking practically, we've got to make things happen, a very physical experience, where we're moving into this heart space, where we're moving into feelings, and how feelings are the modem of how we're creating our reality. You just feel into it, and those things that you desire come about. So whether you're thinking positive or negative, it's coming about
Quickly.
And all of that is happening at a more, how do I say this? Like, God, I don't even know where to take that. There's so much there. So as we're going through this leveling up process, the vibration of the earth, everything is elevating. And if you are stuck in those negative emotions, if you are stuck in grief, pain, even to the lesser degree, just dissatisfaction, you're going to feel like you're trudging along, you're going through sludge, whereas those of us who are consciously healing, moving into, that higher vibrational space, experiencing joy, it's like life is becoming simpler. It's becoming so much more magical and so much more fun. It's kind of like, who wouldn't want to be here? But as I've been learning through all this work, is that people will do anything possible to not face their fear. They will destroy relationships. They will blow up their lives because they do not want to get down deep into what's really affecting them. So this is the dynamic we're in right now. People need to heal because this ascension is happening whether we want it to or not. Okay, so there's a start.
Perfect. And I like that. And maybe the role will switch a little bit. Maybe I'll ask some questions.
Yeah, right.
And I'll preface this by saying that typically this information is coming through me while I'm in trance. So I don't know a lot about this subject. So I'm going to be an observer and a listener during this one, but I'll add where I can. But Allison, can you maybe, for those that are listening, that Ascension, maybe what is Ascension and these different levels? What are we talking about when we're talking about the different levels of Ascension? I think that would be a good place to start. Samantha, you covered quite a bit with, where some of that is, but let's maybe backtrack a little bit and start from a good, a kind of a good learning
for the
place.
Newbies. And again, this is mostly coming from channeled information from folks' higher selves, clients' higher selves, from our team of higher dimensional beings. And so I don't proclaim to have all the answers. We don't. We'll tell you what we're hearing, and whether you resonate with it, good. That's wonderful if you do. And if you don't, just leave it. It's fine. But from what I understand, this ascension is going to take place throughout the whole galaxy. So it's not just about Earth. So with that in mind, all of the higher level beings are rooting for our success, because as we ascend, it pushes everybody else up as well. And so right now we have folks who are in 3 different dimensional levels on our planet interacting at the same time: 3D, 4D, and 5D. And so 3D might be your unawake family and friends. They don't know anything about the metaphysical. They're not interested in it, perhaps, or they just haven't awakened into the understanding that we're more than just a physical body, and they're going about their day, and that's fine. All of us have signed up for whatever path that is that we want, and none of them are wrong. And then we have the 4D, which is kind of the bridge between 3 and 5, and that is where metaphysical happenings take place. So you'll find what we would normally call negative and positive energies in that space. It's where maybe some of your psychic attachments, things like that, might come into play, or you might be astral traveling in your sleep and encountering some beings, good or bad. But that's where manifestations start taking place and what we call the magic. And then we have folks who are in 5D already, not a whole heck of a lot of them, but there are some. And that's where we're all kind of heading towards, this 5D being, where there is still some polarity, but it's not the kind of polarity that's on the 3D realm, where we have drastic good and drastic bad and drastic painful and drastic joy back and forth like that. You understand all of that at the 5D still, but it's what our teams have talked to us about is like it's walking through a threshold. So we say that we're awake, right? We call ourselves awake, but this is a whole other level of awakening. You walk through this threshold where, oh my gosh, that's what this is all about. Now I get it. You're part of this greater spiritual team. You have more of an awareness of who you really are and how you're connected to everything and how you're connected to source, and how your actions affect every other piece and particle in that quantum field. So it's sort of awakening. Ascension is basically awakening into this understanding of who we truly are. So when that awakening process happens, and from what we also understand, it's going to happen in our lifetime, so it's not terribly far away. We're still going to be here for it. And we've never done this in a physical body, according to the higher dimensional beings that we speak to. Humanity's never done this in the physical body. You could kind of call it an ascension process when you transition out of the body. Not ascension, but it's transition, but it's kind of a similar type of thing. But anyway, so we've never done this before. And what's going to happen is those that are on the 3D are going to move up, and those that are on the 4D are going to move up, and those that are on the 5D, everybody's going to move up a level essentially. So there's still going to be 3D people on our planet incarnating because they want that polarity experience. There's still going to be a need for that. So we talk about New Earth, which is a whole other kind of topic that we'll probably delve into here too. But New Earth is not a place where we're going in terms of the old Earth is going to disintegrate or be gone, or we're not going to be playing around in that anymore. It's sort of like it's all going to be overlaid on top of each other. So you're going to have this 3, 4, and 5D Earth still taking place. It's just that our awareness is going to change. So what we become aware of and how we operate is what changes. So I think that's kind of a good place to start a kind of a framework.
If I knew you were going to give us that incredible cyclopedic knowledge, I wouldn't have even taken a stab at it. I love it.
And
it gets quite complicated. So I felt like I was.
Oh, you just did a beautiful job. Like I'm giving the impression that I've been getting through my guides, in so much as they are explaining it to my various clients. But you guys are having the unique experience of purposefully being asked to channel this information for this, am I allowed to say this upcoming book?
Yeah,
sure.
So, so yes, you have this, when I say encyclopedic, it's that you have this body of knowledge. And it's incredible, the information being given to you that just happens to coincide with everything else, which is what's so cool, is that all this information for all these different resources blends, but it's also very specific what you're receiving.
Yeah, and what's interesting is because I practice Beyond Quantum Healing, BQH, we have a forum called Quantum Healers. You can research that if you're interested, quantumhealers.com. Anybody who practices any modality can join that, but it's a beautiful forum of like-minded practitioners of all sorts. And many of us are either QHHT or BQH practitioners. So we do spiritual hypnosis types of sessions. So those folks also are getting information from their clients. And so we post a lot of that, of course, confidentially, but what are some themes that we're seeing? What's some information that we're getting? So it's, I get information from a wide range of sources, including direct experience through our own clients and our own personal channelings. And it's just fascinating. And there's so much out there. There are some differences in what people are getting and differences in the way that we are interpreting what they mean by what's going to happen. But for the most part, it's very similar what we're going to go through. And as you said, which is, I don't want to be taken lightly, we can't take the baggage with us. And it isn't that you're not going to ascend, you are, but it's going to be a lot more painful if you don't work on the shadow self and start healing those parts of you. And so as we see our own clients, yes, they're coming to us with a lot of severe trauma that they've kind of just swept under the rug for their life. And now it's time to bring that up and clear it for good.
And they feel the need, like they're like, there's this feeling inside of me. I have to be able to let go of it. And they don't even really understand why, but again, it's resonating with them. They just know that this has to come to light. And what I'm finding, I assume you're getting the same thing in your sessions, is that it's not just experiences from this lifetime, but that it can be ancestral, which to me, that was such a weird concept to try to embrace at the beginning, because it just came up in a reading and I was going, oh, okay, now what the heck is this, But, okay, so here's a particular theme that I find really fascinating with all of this. And hopefully I'm not jumping into a whole new topic here. But one thing that keeps coming up is that the people who are what is called light workers, those that are, have come forth with this mission of spreading this information, of helping to assist in healing and so forth, that it's not like our first go round on earth, and just, that we've been testing the waters, accruing these skills, these abilities throughout many lifetimes. And consequently, because of it, we've also been persecuted. We have been, hit and lied and, imprisoned and, burned and all kinds of awful things over numerous lifetimes. And so, it is a process of understanding. A lot of light workers have that kind of ancestor, or that past life baggage that they need to heal. So that's a whole other theme. And I just realized that's a little bit different from the ancestral, because ancestral is more you're healing for kind of the collective of of those associated with
physical, your physical line, right? Yeah. But you're exactly right. And what's fascinating is our clients are coming in with both of those lines. Trauma from both of those lines, and they're intersecting, and they came here specifically because they were the strongest of the strong and could handle that. So they've had trauma not only ancestrally, but also through their past life lineage. And they're coming in to attack both of those things. And so those poor people are strung out, and it's challenging in this 3D realm. I mean, they've had a lot of abuse in childhood, maybe domestic abuse, all sorts of stuff. And so, but what's really fascinating is they are being, like you said, triggered all of a sudden. We see a lot of females, particularly in their 30s, who are ready to do the work. They're ready to address it. They don't want it affecting their children. They don't want it affecting their life anymore. And so they're being triggered to come in. It's almost like a piece of DNA is turning on at a particular age and saying, oop, it's time, so that they can go out and help their network, their circle clear and heal.
And from what I understand, what I understand is that, they're coming in here to clear Well, basically, they're coming in here to put up a stop marker on their journey. And whenever that session takes place or whenever that work takes place for them, that's the place at which they leave all of that ancestral and that past life experience. Not the lessons, because the lessons are necessary, but it's all of the experiences that have traumatized you or held you back or withheld you or whatever that might be. They're putting a stop to it on that particular day or through a course of some, work. And from there, they're creating a whole new future.
Yep.
It's a brand new clear slate. There's no ancestral lines. There's no past history. They're creating that first generational experience.
So they've said it's not even like opening a new chapter in your life. It's about closing that book entirely and starting a new book, and that your ancestors appreciate this. They're thrilled that you took on the challenge of coming here. I mean, not everybody can tackle this. Those souls are very, very brave, and it heals the line going back and it heals the line going forward so that the children are no longer impacted, and your ancestors, even though they're in spirit, are also healed.
Now, the two areas that I find, I found that I love that you guys are getting into that, the clientele of 30-year-olds, who are really focused on the family, because I would love to be there, but that's not who's coming forward for me. It's a lot of women who are between 50 and 60, who, they've gone through a lot of their major lessons in life, and they're looking to release from some of those things that are, that it's usually that their mother, like from that generation prior, that was an influence in that. But they are, they just have that feeling that they know that they're here for some purpose. They don't know what it is, but they know there's something there. So that's been in my personal business. Now with this whole channeling that's come through, and that only really started last fall. But that whole thing has been focused on coaching the coaches. It's been all about, because there are so many therapists and, counselors, coaches, doing life coaching, that kind of stuff, who are, they're not walking their talk. They are not healed. And they feel this imposter syndrome because they know that that they're not quite there yet. It doesn't mean we don't ever stop healing. We're constantly going through the onion, right? The layers of the healing that's needed to occur. But that there's just, oh my gosh, there's so much there that they have to level up and step into that knowingness in order to be more effective at what they're doing at this time. And they can feel it and they know. And I think that's why that divide of imposter syndrome is so intense right now. So it's really fascinating to see those two differences. And then have you guys dealing in this whole different area. So there are kind of specialties. It's not that we can't help anyone else, but it's just, these are themes. It's a spectrum.
There's certain groups that are going to, for us, it's that 30s, mid 30s, female clientele that are coming into their awareness. For you, it's the older generation that understands that there's something greater. They've just woken up one day and said, things just don't, things aren't making sense, but I know there's something bigger and there's a bigger purpose.
Or I'm just stalled.
Or stagnant.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's a big one. I've got the grandbabies. I've got the, husband's retiring, and I don't know. It's just, they don't know what to do next. And it's a very fascinating place to be.
Interesting, because our clientele changes over time, and it depends on what our guides have in store for us, because this has not always been the case. This has only been probably the last 6 to 8 months that this has changed up.
Yep.
So in the beginning, when I got certified in Beyond Quantum Healing, and I was told that I would be using this as my primary modality, I decided to do 25 free sessions, which is similar to what Dolores Cannon asked of her practitioners back when she was alive, and in her program, I think they still do that. But anyway, I thought this is a beautiful way to practice and get experience in a whole, at any rate. The point was that the 25 people that came to me were all light workers. They were all people who do this sort of thing. And it was about heal the healers. That was the message I got. And that was, I don't know, 2017, I think.
Yeah.
So back then it was time to get them on the path, get them that last bit of healing that they needed, and so that they could go out and work miracles.
Mhm. So there's this other concept, which I've mentioned in other podcasts, the old paradigm versus new paradigm. And that again is going back to the whole ascension process, that it is a very distinct, like, you can look generationally, like there's Gen X, there's Gen Z, and we're all defined by certain, commonalities of that generation. So when you look at old paradigm versus new paradigm, this old paradigm is pre-ascension, going into the ascension. The new paradigm is what we are growing into in this ascension process. And the old paradigm is just, it's a very shut down, it's all about me kind of model. Again, it's all very in the head, and it's all efforting. Life is it's a struggle. And, you think about it, for the majority of humanity that we know of, it has been a struggle. Like when you do past life regressions, don't you find that lives were pretty shitty? Sorry. I mean,
Yeah.
they were rough. They were short and they were rough.
Yeah.
Not pleasant. And so then, we're moving into all of that. And, we're moving into this new paradigm space where it's more about the collective. It's more altruistic. It's more being of service. It's this heart space that just glows. And I tell you, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, if I'd heard myself talking like this, I would have been like, oh my God, I've drunk the Kool-Aid. What is wrong?
Love that.
But now I can talk about it and embrace it and feel it. And it's such a great shift to make. But life is just easier in this space, which is where we're all going. So for me, it's some people might hear things that make them feel concerned, about this whole process. And yet we're moving into this incredibly beautiful space. So I'm excited about it.
So, as you're talking about that, one thing comes to mind, again, maybe this might be another topic for another time, but let me just bring it out and then see where we go with it. But
yeah.
So I am not of the 70s generation. I wasn't old enough at the time to enjoy the 70s, love and all that, but
late
60s, yeah, 60s,
Yeah.
the hippies, the hippie, right? The hippie generation. But what they were experiencing is similar to what we're experiencing now. This feeling of love, this feeling of exploration, a feeling that there is a greater purpose in life. There's a greater, and not tied to the governmental structure and all of this, all of that. That's what they were trying to express. But
Age of Aquarius.
the age of Aquarius, but we're back into that cycle again, but we're approaching it much differently. So I'm wondering if there wasn't a point during that time that there was, maybe there wasn't an ascension point at that point, and it got misconstrued, or it went off the rails kind of thing, because it was more used, that from the human side of things was more used for just fun and recreation instead of purpose. And here now we're recognizing it for purpose. We're understanding it from a different paradigm. We're understanding it that there is this need now to cast away the old, the shadows and all that stuff in order to expand ourselves really ultimately into a higher dimensional being. So I don't know. It's a thought that came into my mind as you're talking about stuff. And, so I just kind of throw that out. It might be a whole nother podcast, who knows, but
I love that, because it's like we've matured into this space. So it's kind of like, think about this. It's like when you're not really feeling good, you're kind of feeling crappy, and then you finally take some kind of medication, whether it's Tylenol or whatever, that eases that pain, and you almost have that sense of euphoria, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, that's what I liken the 60s, 70s experience to. All of a sudden, there was this permission to truly be happy, to truly express oneself, to love one another, and I think what you said there's a really good point, because it was our first real heavy dose. And there may have been other eras that we are unaware of in in the human evolution, where this sort of thing occurred. Maybe they felt that way in the Renaissance when all of a sudden they could, express themselves more creatively or whatever. But here, was what we know as that first real great expression. And yet it was immature. It was more irresponsible, and I don't, I'm going to just call it that, because it was a crazy, crazy time. And then you take it to what we're experiencing now, and it is being met with, there's a bit of solemnity, respect, appreciation, reverence. It's we recognize it as a holy or spiritual experience, and something we're very excited for, and that we know that there's work to do, and that there is faith required, that it's all going to work out. But as you begin to go through this process, when you're feeling this ascension occurring, there's so much positivity that it's like, how can this be anything but a positive, forward motion for humanity? Because to feel what you feel is incredible. To experience what you're experiencing as you're going through this process.
But at the same time, it can be construed as painful and difficult because we're so enmeshed in this matrix.
I want to use a different word, challenging.
Yeah.
I don't want people to think too much of, oh my God, it's painful. It is challenging for sure.
But it can be painful. Be challenging for people to extricate themselves from that belief system that's all they know. All you know are these certain beliefs that you were raised with, or what your parents taught you, what your church taught you, what your government tells you. And so to flip that script means that everything in your life is going to be new. It's going to be different. And so it's about whether you're ready to step through that threshold and surrender to it, trusting that whatever is coming is going to be way better than what you're leaving behind. And so,
is that what your book is partially covering? Your first book, Journey Within. It's about the construct of what you grew up with, and then the shift into trusting this whole other
having
experience.
Courage. Yeah, a lot of it's about having courage to explore these things, to contemplate another way of being, contemplate different belief systems, contemplate your own belief systems. Like the initial thing that comes into your mind, process it again, treat it like you're a child. Where did it come from? Do I still believe that way? Why do I believe that way? All of those types of things. It's so important for us to start thinking about our belief systems, because a lot of it, as I talk about in the book, are not our own. But we're so used to just repeating them, whatever it is, that we don't stop to think, do we even believe that way anymore? But I want to kind of get into the nitty gritty of ascension and what that might look like, in terms of what we will experience. Have you been getting anything like that in your sessions, or any of the higher selves or your guides telling you what to
expect,
what it's going to look like?
No, they've not done that. It's okay. So they haven't done that. They've been very focused on the need for people to heal. That's been the big thing. And just explaining a little bit about the process we're going through, where I have personally, my experiential experience. That's okay. Anyway, where I've experienced it is. So I did this course with my partner, Linda. She was leading the course, mentoring it. It's Elite Mentorship Forum. It's an amazing 6-month program. So it's a deep dive and into how your brain works, how the universe operates. And it's kind of like this guy went out and he collected all of the greatest, latest thoughts and created this program to go through. So it's a very fascinating experience. And it just happened to coincide. It started in September. Now, remember how September of 2022, crazy off the chart energies. Everybody was like totally aware, the sun flares, solar flares were happening. The energy was ratcheting up. There was something about, and I'm throwing some of the stuff out with no comprehension of what all this means. Like the Lionsgate thing, and I'm just like going, okay, I still don't understand that. But what I do from my experience was my very reality was shifting. as they're talking about these concepts and everyone's going, oh, that's interesting. In the course, they're like, oh, this is fascinating. Like the moment, like when Will suggests something and all of a sudden I'm envisioning things differently and all these abilities come. So they're talking about these things and all of a sudden, like they're talking about digital reality, right? That this is really just a digital matrix. And as they're talking about it, all of a sudden I'm starting to see that schism occurring, where all of a sudden something happens and things aren't quite lining up the way they normally would, or everything suddenly looks like I can see the three-dimensionality. I feel like I have been put into a computer game. And if I could erase the tree in front of me, so I can see what's beyond it. It's like the craziest experience. The biggest one I remember was having this, I was talking to a client, she's getting ready to leave, and this hummingbird flies straight towards me. And like, I've never seen a hummingbird out in my driveway. And it comes right over her shoulder. And I'm sitting there literally, as the expression goes, gobsmacked, I'm just going, and she's like, what? And this hummingbird's just flittering there looking at me. And then the moment I'm getting it out of my mouth, I don't even remember it turning around. It just went back. Mm. And I was like, what just happened? These are not normal occurrences. They're like, it's like contrived or something. Mm. So, and so from there, I've gone through the various experiences of, the reality shifting, having energy caught in my body. Remember that fun event when I'm calling you Allison and I'm like, help me, I've been like shaking for 2 weeks and I can't go to a doctor because they're not going to understand that I have this vibration in my body, and then I feel on the edge of being sick. They're going to go, well, go home, take 2 Tylenol and call us when you finally get sick, and then we called on Maria to, assist me with light language and, energy healing. And she taught me how to move that body out of that energy out of my body. Mm-hmm. These are all part of the ascension process of, what we're beginning to realize, see, feel, how it can affect us. It's a crazy process, and we're relying on each other to assist us moving through it because there is no manual. There's no doctor out there who has the answers. It's
right. And I'm glad you brought that up about the ascension symptoms. And I would say that for those of you listening, take it seriously. If you need to go see a doctor, go see a doctor. However, there are some things that our bodies are adjusting to that they have to, because again, we're ascending in the body. We're not going to lose our body. We are going to be more of a light body, but we're going to be in a body, which has never happened before. So everybody's excited about this. And so lots of weird, quirky body issues. And I would say there's somebody on Facebook, Carta Astral 222. She's somewhere in a Spanish speaking country, but I don't remember where that is, but she writes in English and Spanish.
It translates over. Yeah. Cause it'll be kind of broken.
But yeah, it can be a little bit broken, but she is fantastic. She does a fantastic deep dive into the solar flares and things like that from a scientific perspective, and then breaking it down into what you might feel or experience in the body. We're going through one as we speak, but these are not dated, so it's irrelevant, I guess. But lots of different things, headaches, digestive issues, your eyes being goopy or weird, your ears feeling vibrations, tingles in your body, all sorts of, what are you experiencing?
For me, it's primary lack of sleep. It's
look at the look on his face. He's just like, sleep.
I'm not really tired. I mean, literally, I not that we're dating this one, but last night I was up from about 1:30 until 3:00. Got up. Couldn't go back to sleep. As much as I tried to meditate, tried to do different things, my body would not allow me to. But so I just check in with my body just to make sure everything is fine, and I can feel the different pockets of energy vibrating differently, and eventually it just kind of just wanes away, and then I finally fall asleep, and I fall into a nice deep hard sleep, and I'm good. And so at first it's disconcerting. At first, it's like, okay, what the hell's going on? Why am I not sleeping? Let me take some melatonin. Yes. Let me do these different things. And I get hooked on the melatonin and blah, blah, blah. Now it's more, I have to go back to old school myself. And this is probably a good, portion for this is many people are very intuitive with their own bodies, whether it's what you eat, how you sleep, how you feel. It's getting back to the root of being intuitive with your own body and checking in and seeing, okay, where is this coming from? Is this me? Is there something going on with me physically? If really, when you intuitively check in with it and it's a no, then it's coming from the energy that's around you. And then it's just really attenuating to it or adjusting to it or integrating with it because it's doing some benefit to you.
Right.
And like Allison said, don't discount, actual medical advice. We're not telling you to be 100% holistic, doing, two crystals together to feel better. We're telling you, be intuitive with your body. And if you feel that you need to go see a doctor, go see a doctor. It's coming into an understanding that there is a lot energetically that is taking place. For me, it's really come on in the last probably 2.5, 3 years, where before I was not sensitive to the energy, even with all the work I was doing. And as a full moon would set on, forget it. I'm not sleeping that night. It would keep me up. But then as these ascension processes start taking place, you name the symptom, I've had it. I mean, it's just...
And a couple that are important to recognize are anxiety. Mm-hmm. If you're feeling anxious about something, it may not be yours. The sunspots particularly, and the flares will cause that. And then if you need a lot more sleep or more water, those are important things to do too, to honor your body. And if you feel like you need rest, then rest. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I was just going to say the card astral on Facebook is a good place to go and look. And if you're all of a sudden something pops up, look on there and see if it's on her list of symptoms.
Yeah. And typically it
is. Going back to what you were saying, Will, I just find it really fascinating that, you're talking about checking in with your body. And I think it's it is a whole other topic. Okay. But what we've gone through in 2020, 2021 into 2022, we know what we're all talking about, COVID stuff, that really has brought about awareness to people. Do you give away your power and just trust what the medical establishment, I'm not being conspiracy theorist or anything, like I don't want to go all there, but just, do you give your power away to the doctor, to the medical establishment? Or, like to me, that was a wake up call that, it's not always necessarily in your best benefit, that, that the old country, corner doc is not operating anymore. The one who asked you, well, what are you feeling? It's now, well, you have presented with these things, therefore I am going to give you this medicine, and there you go. This is how we're doing it now. Instead of them using their intuition and asking us, a more holistic approach of, well, I hurt my right knee and now my left shoulder, is bugging, it's like they used to put those connections together. So I think that through that process, it was a strong nudge into us going into trusting ourselves, listening to ourselves, advocating for ourselves. And not everyone has gone there. I think it was a great kind of, the wheat from the chaff kind of thing, it kind of helped people sort out where they are vibrationally speaking in this whole process. But the more that you could go in and trust what, listen to your body first, and then seek what, you felt, what resonated the most to you. I think that was, a very intentional process. I think it provided a lot of other things, but germane to this conversation, I think that it was very much about learning to go within and listen to yourself.
The inner voice. Yeah, for sure.
This whole process that you were talking about over the past couple of years was designed it was beautifully designed, really, to push everybody into a corner so that you wake up, so that you figure out what you will and will not tolerate, understand your own sovereignty, understand your truth, and what is the bigger picture here. People lost their jobs, which on the surface is horrific. But then those same people discovered, they really love art, and now they're making and selling art. Or this restaurant that paid them $8 an hour, now they have their own food truck and they're making a lot more and they're satisfied. Mm-hmm. So the whole point of that, and really the point in any what we would interpret as negative experience, is to look for the gift that's inside. And that's what the big C
The
helped
lesson.
us to
Yep.
do.
Yeah.
Where the growth happens.
Yeah. But I want to talk also about the nuts and bolts, kind of what Ascension looks like from our end.
Okay.
We've been hearing from our team. And so we just had a session recently, and this doesn't happen too often, but this particular client asked about, was her family going to ascend with her? Were there going to be spaceships involved and ETs? How was this going to look? So I was like, oh, here we go. Yay. Exciting. So her higher self gave information that resonated with what we've heard before, which was that everybody's ascending. So her family was going to ascend with her, and that we would ascend in stages. So usually the higher level beings and our guides don't like to give us time dates, because there are multiple timelines. Our timelines are determined by our actions and our vibration, very much so. So keep this with a grain of salt also. But our teams have said within the next 12 to 24 months is when we're going to experience that event. And that event is a wash of energy over our entire planet that it's what's going to level us up. Some people have called it the flash. They've equated it to a solar flash. The solar flash itself and the event are two different things, but they're going to be kind of close together. But this wash of energy is going to sweep over our planet and change things. But although it looks like a flash to them because they have no time where they are, to us, it's going to take place over the course of about a year, 12 and a little more than 12 months. And there are 3 stages. Those of us who are already doing this work and who are what we would call the light workers are going to be on the front lines of it and experience the first shift. Then there'll be a middle shift and then an ending shift for those that haven't awakened yet.
So that's all in a span of 12 months?
That will be 12 to 20.
Supposedly?
12 from now, 12 to 24 months. So the span of a year, but that will start in about a year. If that.
Okay. And then when that washing over of energy occurs, it has 3 stages. But is each stage 12 months, or
No.
from start to finish it all
The reason
occurs
it takes the whole year is because there are different stages.
Okay.
Blossom Goodchild talks about this also, about our envelopes opening.
Yeah, Blossom's wonderful.
Yeah, her team talks about this as an envelope opening, and that's what ours have equated it to, a threshold that you're going to walk through. And that's going to be that aha moment where you kind of walk through this threshold and it's like, your eyes are open. It's like clear now. You see, there's no veil anymore. You understand your place in the universe. And the question that our client received about whether ships would be involved, they didn't specifically say that. And I've heard other channelers say that ET ships are going to come down and take some souls off planet who aren't ready to ascend. And I think that's what she was alluding to. But they didn't say that. They did say there would be divine help, because there are some unawakened souls who wrote into their contract that they didn't want to ascend that way. They don't want to ascend in this physicality. But they can't be here and not ascend. So if they're not transitioning, they're going to ascend, but they're not ready. So what's going to happen is, what this higher self said is that they're going to be lifted. The energy will wash so that it doesn't affect them in a negative way, because they haven't done the work, like you said. They haven't done the work, so their bodies are not ready. Their souls may not be ready. This energy would just be too much for them. So they're going to be lifted somehow. They didn't say ships. This energy would wash through, they'd be brought back down, and then all of us that did experience that event would start to help them. They would start to seek, they would know something was different. They'll know something happened, but they don't know what that was or why they feel different. And so they're going to start seeking out, and we're going to be there to help them understand what just took place. So that's fascinating stuff that we've been getting about all of
that. Coincides with, I don't know if I've mentioned this once before, the people, I think his name is Aaron, Aeron, Architects of Destiny. He's talked about this as well. One of the things that he said is that those who are light workers, that now is the time that they need to understand how to move into that vibrational space, get their, when I say business, it's weird because it's like, it's your service, your place of being, get yourself set up so you're ready to begin to help these individuals, acclimate to a new earth, or to, this new experience, this elevated experience. So he's saying now is the time for us to begin to go through these processes. There was course.
Which is why our clients are coming to us for healing. And it's
Yeah.
like their DNA is activating, turning on all of a sudden, because they have got to be out there to be on the front lines, just like that client that was telling us, her higher self was telling us about that, because she's ready. She's going to help her circle, and this person's going to help their circle and their network and all of these and their family and whatever. So that the time is now for all of us to step into our mission and our purpose. There's no more hesitation.
Leave the baggage behind, come in with a clean slate, ready to go and do the work. Yep.
Exactly. I think these are exciting times. I mean, this is just, and I think that the message, what the guides had said to you about, we signed up for this. We were excited. We are the strongest of the strong. We stepped into this because, we're super ready. And, this is like getting on the scariest roller coaster ever, right? You're standing in the line going, oh my God, I don't know what this is going to be like, but I'm excited. I can't wait for this to happen, And so I was expressing that to my partner, Linda, and I've heard her repeat it to so many people. It's the thing that she has held on to, that like it's almost like a mantra, or that banner you wave. It's you don't duck from anything, any kind of emotion, any kind of whatever. You face it head on and you heal it, because we are here, we are meant to do this. And it has empowered her, and it's like infectious, and I love it. It's just, that is a great feeling to know that, because everyone's always like, well, what's my purpose? And I love, because our guides will never tell us this is your purpose. It's like that, the cookie crumbs that you get to follow, but it's all about moving into that healing space, connecting with your higher self, and then getting those nuggets, those nudges, the whatever. And it's all part of the excitement and fun. I just think that this is like the coolest time to be in existence.
Oh my goodness, yes. And to connect with people like you and our circle. I mean, just connecting with different people and all the clients that we see, it's so rewarding and so much fun. And that's why I say, if you can just surrender to the knowing that what's ahead of you is so much greater and more fulfilling and just so much more beautiful than anything that you're leaving behind. It's just easy to let go of the fear.
And I'll play the opposite side of the table on this. So for those that hear this message, right? Hear this message, just trust, surrender. How do you trust? How do you surrender if this is not something that you are, awakening to right at this moment, but yet you feel there is some nudging in a particular direction? How do you take those baby steps? How do you trust that what you're feeling is correct and it's not something that's being induced by somebody else, or,
well, like you said, it is baby steps. You'll hear something from your guide, or you might get a message from somebody, and then you trust. And then that builds on the next piece and the next piece. And I'll tell you again, I tell everybody about this, but you got to journal. You need to be journaling these things, because when a miracle, a synchronicity, a coincidence happens, write it down. Or you get an interesting dream, write it down. And when 6 months go by and you look back and you're like, oh my gosh, look how far I've come in 6 months. Look at all these patterns. You can start to see the patterns, and you can start to build trust that way when you see that you are protected, you are given information. So,
and one thing that keeps coming through in a lot of our channelings, when it, especially with the collective, and they bring up an information about the Ascension or whatever, they always make sure everybody understands. Do not get distracted. It's the distractions in life. And what do they mean by the distractions in life? It's everything. This world is chaotic enough. This world has enough distractions in it. But it's and I'll use a personal example for myself. When I first started doing this work, and I was actually working from home with
You sure you want to say that on
Sure, why
the
not?
air?
I don't even know. I don't know what you're thinking, but I'll tell you, maybe it's different. But, I working from home, I love to have the news in the background. Wasn't watching it. It was because I was home alone. I needed something in the background just to kind of cut the noise, cut the silence, while I was working, doing my corporate work. But yet I was still I was waking to my metaphysical self. Well, Allison would continually tell me, you need to turn the news off, because even though you're not watching it, it's getting in there. And I'm like, no, it's not getting in there. It gets in there. And there was a moment at which one morning I woke up, I said, I'm not going to watch any news. And that was the day that I turned off all news. That isn't to say that I'm void of any news. It's not like I'm keeping myself naive and I don't pay attention to what's going on in the world. I read headlines and that's it.
That's what I do.
Right? I don't read the articles. And it, you know what, if my intuition says, hey, I need to look a little deeper than that, then I'll look a little deeper. But other than that, it's just skimming the wave top of what's taking place in the world. So it's I'll say it's on my horizon. I can see it out there, but it's not overwashing my reality. And from that point, it really changed. If anything, it took away so much anxiety. Mm-hmm. It took away so much worry. And I had a trust in myself that I'm living exactly the way I'm supposed to be living. So, yep.
Well, another thing I want to add on to that is that, you know, those of us out there leading the charge as light workers, I wish there was another name for it, you know, because you know how things get co-opted, labels, and all of a sudden it becomes kind of its own cottage industry or whatever, but it's just for lack of any other way to describe it, those leading the charge or whatever. When you get into these positions, there's no more guide rails, you know, there's no ultimate authority, you know, you begin to realize it is really, truly you, yourself, and I kind of thing, you know, you're just like, you are on that leading edge. And that you are like, thankfully we have people we can reach out, you know, horizontally to, you know, around us to, lock arms with and, you know, and bolster each other. But, you know, we have our doubts too at times, you know, you just kind of going, okay, you know, when is this going to happen? Because this is how everything's been flowing. And, you know, it's one of the reasons I do love listening to Blossom Goodchild, because she does question that in her readings. Mm-hmm. She doesn't try to act from authority or anything. She's asking, you know, I feel like I'm a fool and I'm being misled here and whatever. And her guides, you know, they'll just subtly explain a few things to her. And it clicks and you go, okay. But when you realize that those of us who are kind of leading this charge and stuff, that yeah, we have our doubts too, and that, you know, our moments of kind of going, what's going on here? But here's the difference, like you said, and I wish I was better about keeping a journal, but I at least mentally catalog, but it's not the same thing as writing it down, and I do understand that. But that all I have to do is refocus back on my life. And I literally, you know, I have the 1111 synchronicities. I can put out a question going, well, I wonder why this works this way. And quite literally within 24 hours, that article or whatever, or somebody comes into my sphere answering that question for me. The proof is all around me, you know, of just how incredible this whole process is going, and this awareness that we're having and our ability to create this experience that we're having. Yeah. So it's just, yeah, it does take those baby steps in the beginning, but my God, it accelerates. And then you're just like, you know, slow it down a little bit, because it's so much coming in at you that is just confirmation, affirmation, you know, it's just like, you can't possibly not believe it.
Yeah.
You're just surrounded in it. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's a very exciting process to go through, but yeah, I mean, we're still having the human experience, and we still have those moments of, oh God, I can't believe I'm telling these people this, but you're like, but you can't not, that push inside of you, you have to do it. It's amazing. And then the results that happen are incredible.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And it gets easier. The more that you do it, the more you step out of your comfort zone, the easier it is to do that. And you're giving others permission to do the same. Yeah. Which is a beautiful thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we all need that. I mean, not the permission. We need to see that others are willing to step out of their comfort zone, and they're not getting, you know, their arms cut off or whatever, you know, and even if they do, like, you know, I had an experience not too long ago. I've really been understanding what the law of attraction is all about and everything. And I had experience not too long ago where I kept saying, you know, if I ever got in trouble, I'm going to go to that emergency care clinic. It looks like a nice place to go to. And I don't know why I kept saying that, but it was almost like a weekly thing. I'd pass by it and go, that's such a, you know, I bet they're nice people there. And sure enough, I end up slipping in the shower and really putting a gash in my leg. And the thing is, you take me a year, 2 years before, and I would have been like, oh, why didn't I, do thus and such? Why didn't I have like slip protection? And why is this happening to me? And instead, in between trying not to hyperventilate and pass out and freak my husband out, I was cracking up because I'm just like, oh my God, I get to go to the emergency care clinic, I mean, like, I saw the humor in it. It was, and everything, it could have been such a bad situation, and yet it wasn't, and it's made me go, okay, this is a friendly universe. It is what I create it to be. And even when these, negative things, what we see as negative, I like the term contrast. Whenever we see this contrast, it's like, it's for my benefit. I'm going to learn. I'm going to explore. Sure, it sucks in the moment, but I can just let it go and enjoy the experience, the newness of it. I'm on a whole new branch, it's really is fun, but you gotta, get yourself into that place to, level yourself up, do the healing so that you're in that higher vibrational space and can experience this. That's all part of the ascension process.
Absolutely.
And it's amazing. It's going to be fun. Isn't it going to be fun? I'm super excited to be ascending with all of you guys. We knocked people out of line to get down here. So, yeah. Everything you ever wanted to know about Ascension, here it is. I'm sure we could go on for hours about this topic, and maybe we'll revisit it again in a future episode.
Yep.
Oh, I'm sure of that. And if people put down comments, they write comments down below. If we didn't hit on something they were curious about, then we can always jump back in and, either respond in those comments, or maybe they'll feel free to suggest like a specific area that you want us to talk about with this stuff, because we're hitting kind of broad topics in areas, and there's so many different ways we could take this.
Yep.
So we're, they say, what is it? Reality is fueled by the question or whatever. So asking the question is what brings about, our awareness. Oh, let's address this area.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yes.
In fact, that's what the guide said about our podcast.
Yep.
That just the idea of talking about these things out loud is stirring up this beautiful energy that those who see it are seeking.
Yep.
And how helpful and beneficial not just our words will be, but the energy of those discussions.
Yep.
So thank you for bringing that up again, Samantha. And thank you for reminding us that if you guys have a suggestion for a topic, or we did or did not cover something as thoroughly as you wanted, by all means, leave us a comment. We read those and we appreciate them, and we appreciate you watching. Thank you so much for being present with us. If you like what you saw, please hit the subscribe, the notification bell, share it with people who need to hear this. Thank you again for being with us.
Yep.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.